Hi, and welcome back to another session of Triumph Tales. Today I have the founder and CEO of Olofsson and Company. Welcome to it.
Thank you very much, Bill. Yeah, very nice being here. Looking
Well,
forward to
it's
a little bit
excellent.
of a chat.
So, as any of you who've been following our podcasts have realized that a number of tech leaders of either large companies or small companies are all struggling with what they call the war on talent. And today I'm talking to Roger, who's built a business helping the tech companies fix this problem. How's it been going?
Yeah, good. Good. It's been a very exciting time. We have, and we might actually get an opportunity to talk a little bit more about this as well in terms of when is a good timing to start, because we've been going through the global pandemic as a 2-year-old company and survived that, and then also had the opportunity to adjust to the whole funding winter and tech winter that started to happen in the early parts of 2022.
So let's go right back to basics, though. Why you don't sound like a local. So where did you come from, and why are you here in Singapore?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a good question, Bill, and can be a long story as well. It depends on how much time we have. But it's I've been in Singapore for 27 years now,
wow.
Since
Okay.
1996. So I think we've both been here for a long period of time. And
Yeah, I'm 1 year behind you.
1 year behind, yeah. And I'm sure, and again, we can talk about that too when we met, which was many years ago. But for whatever reason, and I certainly couldn't explain why, but I knew that I wanted to start a business from when I was 7 years old. And my mother has reminded me about that recently as well. And that thought didn't go away over all these years. And I also had a very strong attraction towards Asia from a very young age. I used to watch everything on TV about Asia, read about it, and so it was a very strong gravitation to come here. And and actually, and when I went backpacking to Asia in 1994, to Singapore, the rest of the Southeast Asian countries, and that was back in when I was studying engineering back in Sweden, and that was the time when the rest of the world referred to Southeast Asia as the tiger economies of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Double-digit GDP growth year on year, and it was, the energy in this place was amazing. Coming from Sweden, where we had come out of recession, or we probably were in some kind of recession, and it felt like the best days had been, and it was just downhill from here, in a way. And I came here, and here people were one thing, people had less than what we had back in Sweden, but it looked like they were genuinely happier, and they certainly had more confidence in the future, more interest in, and more drive. So there was so much going on. There was just so much construction activity and businesses being started and growing, and international companies coming in to set themselves up here for the future. And I just felt this is absolutely what I need to be. I went back to Sweden, found out that there were a bunch of Singaporean in my home university, and asked them, it was like, wow, this is like my people. I just came from your part of the world. And they said, yeah, we're here on an exchange program between your university and NTU in Singapore. And I said, oh, wow, okay.
I remember when I was similar, I was the head of worldwide sales and marketing for a company called Equant, which is now known as Orange Business Services.
Yeah.
And there was an opportunity to to come over here and run the Asia Pacific business, and I did backflips because it was exactly the same. It's such an exciting part of the world.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd be here for 2 years, and 26 years later, I'm still here. So
exactly.
Similar story, right?
Same thing. Yeah. It was 10 months that turned into 27. So same thing. Yeah.
So why in the talent acquisition space? Why was that the area that you selected to start a business?
Yeah. It's also a really good question, and honestly, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and most people, even many people that are in talent acquisitions and they're successful in this industry, and I think all of us kind of agree that we kind of fell into it. There's kind of no one that.
Because you studied engineering, you said.
Yeah, I studied computer engineering, and I call myself a bit of a failed engineer, So I was good enough to pass the courses, and. With decent grades, but I studied with But I studied with engineers, software engineers, or future software engineers that were absolutely talented in this space. And the industry has started to come to refer to as 10x talent, that we might talk a little bit about as well. And these guys could do things with their brains in terms of creating code, solving problems and creating code that my brain couldn't. I could solve the problem, but it was a clumsy, long, ugly-looking solution. I could understand what they had done, and I could appreciate the elegance and the beauty of it, but also knew that my brain is not capable of creating that.
There you go.
And then when I started looking for an opportunity here in Singapore, after I'd finished it was my final year of engineering at NTU, and then I did my master thesis here. And then I started to look for a job, and it was really, this was in '98, and it was not a lot of, I might have been the only fresh grad Westerner in the country. There was hardly any. It was very rare still. Now it's very common with lots of youngsters in this part of the world as well. So it was really hard when I knocked on doors to get opportunities. I got a few interviews here and there. Thought I was going to do maybe consulting or software sales or something. And I interviewed with a recruitment company that told me that, okay, so you know a lot about tech, and that's your skill set, and you're very interested in people, and you want to learn about sales. So why don't you come on board with us and work in what they just set up, a new business unit, IT contracting. And then you get to use your technical skills, you get to engage with people all the time and learn more about them. And then we teach you everything you need to know about sales and how to engage with companies, corporates, etc. So I said, well, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And I thought what I didn't tell them was that, yeah, okay, I'll take it on until I get a real job. And 2 years later, I joined a big global player, Rob Walters. That's after that
and that's how we met, right? Around that period.
Around that time. And I had a moment, it's like it was like one of those epiphany moments, and walking down towards Boat Quay after a busy day at work, and I'd closed a big deal, and I'd met one of the most senior important people in DBS, and he had been listening to,
which is a big local bank.
Yeah, exactly, and he had asked me for advice in terms of the talent market. I couldn't believe it. I'm 27 years old, and this big shot in DBS wants to hear what I have to say. And I'd interviewed a super smart junior technical talent as well, and was so excited. So I just realized I had this thought process. I was going down to Boat Quay, where I'm thinking, like, if I did this job, would I miss this? And if I did that job, would I miss this? And I just fell in love. That I call it the moment when I fell in love with what I was doing.
Literally an epiphany.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that love affair has continued since.
So with your tech background, you then started a business in talent acquisition for tech companies.
That's right. Yeah.
Now since then you've kind of pivoted to focus on early stage startup tech companies in particular. Why did you make that decision?
Yeah, exactly. So my whole career had been in tech, in recruitment for talent solutions for tech, either tech skills or in non-tech companies or for tech companies themselves. Mostly enterprise size companies, but I had gotten an opportunity to work with startups, even in the tail end of the dot-com crash, the dot-com boom, just before the dot-com crash. And I had found the courage and the energy and the personalities of founders and their incredible belief in what they're doing, the possibility for that to change the world in some way, either big or small. And I found it very infectious and I was very drawn to that energy. It took a long time before the startup ecosystem grew back here after the crash. Silicon Valley was just a couple of years. There was a little bit tough, and then it all started back on again. Here, we only had startups coming back 10 years later, about 2010, with Gojek and Grab and Carousel and these guys. Carousel maybe a couple of years later. And I started to get an opportunity to do a little bit more work with startups again. But I found that working for the bigger companies, it was difficult for us to understand and engage correctly or in the best possible way, give these founders and these early stage startups what they really needed. So actually, when we started Olofsson & Company in January 2018, it was with the desire was to start a company that was going to focus on startups, early stage as well as scale.
Okay, so let me just the various companies that I've run over here, I think over the years I've hired or my teams have hired close to 200 people through you and your organizations. You're not going to get an organization that's an early stage startup hire a couple of hundred people. Why have you focused on the early stage companies from a business model? Isn't it more challenging that they're going to hire more selectively and fewer people? And how does it work for you?
Yeah, no, it is more challenging. I've had actually senior people that are in the even in the government support ecosystem to startups, etc. I remember in one conversation that I had when they was like, "Really, you're focused on early stage startups?" And sort of looking at us and
aren't you crazy?
Are you masochists?
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Why do you want to do that?
I get people saying that to me now.
Yeah, exactly. And no, so it is. It was part of it. I think that's where the early stage startups need so much help, probably more with talent than any other at any other stage. I mean, talent is always. I mean, you can't. It is one of the most important, if not the most important, factor for success for a company, to get the right people on board and then get the right things out of those people and get them to be committed to and excited about being part of your organization for a period of time.
So let's touch on culture for a minute, because the bigger companies, as you said earlier, they can absorb mistakes. They can maybe possibly have people that don't fit in and it's not critical. And if there are those smaller companies, they make a mistake, it can be almost terminal.
Yeah.
Now, how do you find the right people to fit into the right companies? How does the culture fit work? Because I know a lot of small companies that we work with now are all talking about their culture. And how do you, as somebody that fits people into these pockets of culture, pick the right people to fit in with the right teams?
Yeah, no, it's a great...
Is it an art or a science?
Yeah, it's great. Oh, man, this is a really good question, Bill. And I think it's probably one of those things that is a combination of both. It's like both left brain and right brain activities and capability and the experience that produces intuition and stuff, on layered on top of it, and it's with one of the key things is when it comes to early to mid-stage startups, the culture of the company is very much an extension of the values and the principles and the integrity and personality of the founder themselves, and so it's very important for us to spend a lot of time with the founder, learning to know their why they started the business, and also what's important to them and what they believe they need to do in order to.
And does your founder's journey yourself help that, in the sense that you're a founder talking to a founder?
I absolutely think so. Yes. I think I've had that feeling, that experience many times myself. And I've gotten that feedback from founders as well. When they're often, there've been several times when, or often when we have a conversation, then they look at me and say, "Well, you don't talk to you don't speak like or think like the other recruiters that I've met in the past. I feel like I'm talking to a founder."
Yeah,
I was like,
you're one of us.
Yeah, exactly. That makes a big difference. And so then we have to try to go so it's very important then to go and find the candidates, the people that want to, that are aligned with the why, the purpose. That is really important. I think if you believe in or you resonate with the purpose of that startup, that business, because every business in a way exists to solve some problems and make something in this world a little bit better, a little bit easier, or save lives, or save time, or save money, or whatever it is, or make more of some of those things, extend lifespan, better health, lots of really good things. But a lot of large corporates have kind of gotten lost a little bit in that, and then they're just machines, and they just exist to create shareholder value, etc. And many of them then try to get back to their roots and why are we here. And with startups, they tend to have a very strong, most of the time, or many of them, certainly the ones that I think have a higher chance of being successful, have a very strong connection to their purpose, and they kind of live, breathe it constantly. And you have to be, as a candidate, that has to resonate with you as a person who's going to come on board with that startup.
So you get it right every time, or mistakes?
I think it's impossible we're dealing with human beings to get it right.
And what happens when things go wrong? Why do things go wrong in your view?
It's often it is something that we have overlooked in the process. Either I think it comes down to honesty in all the parties. We like it 3 parties in the process: the founder or the extended team of the founder that is hiring the person, us as the mediator or the facilitator of the process, and then the candidate that wants to or
Is there a 4th party sneaking in now, like ChatGPT, that's rewriting everybody's resumes and making them all look amazing? Is that becoming a thing?
Yeah, I think it is definitely a thing, but I don't think it necessarily at this stage where we're still relying a lot on human interaction in the process itself. I think it has a very small impact. I don't think it skews the process a lot, or at least maybe at least at the level that we operate, which is more at the senior level of very specialized type of skills. At more of volume hiring or more junior hiring, or maybe less advanced sort of blue collar worker hiring and stuff, then I think that can make AI is going to have a bigger impact quicker.
Well, before we even move on from AI, a question I've been asking all of our guests is AI really a huge internet type moment, or is it just another tool in the toolbox?
I think it is I think it is a huge internet moment. Absolutely. The internet moment didn't happen overnight either, and it required a .com crash and and lots of tech companies
Painful
going
beginning,
under, and us having billions of dollars of infrastructure digged into the ground and undersea and stuff that we didn't really use for a period of time, right? But then there was the enabler of the wave that was to come, right? And I'm not saying that the AI moment is going to be the same at all, right? It could evolve in a completely different way, or I think it is likely that it will evolve in a different way. But I think it is an internet moment, but I think it is going to take a little bit of time.
And then people no longer needed?
Fantastic question.
Some people are saying it, right? There's no more lawyers needed, no more bankers, and some would say that's not a bad thing. But is it going to put us all out of business?
Yeah, no, that is the $1 million question in a way, right? And if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, yeah, maybe, but probably in about 30 to 50 years from now. And then if you would have asked me that question a year ago, I would have said, yeah, probably, and maybe just 3 years from now. And I'm quite worried about this, and excited and worried. And now I would say I've kind of gravitated more towards somewhere in the middle there. I think it will replace some of what we do, or maybe quite a lot of what we do as well. But I think it also will take a little bit longer than what we initially thought.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that it's going to change the way we operate, to change our skills, as the internet did, as various other things before then have changed it. I don't think it's going to smash us all. I think it's going to have us learn new skills and roles that nobody's even heard of at the moment. And it's going to be tools that we enable, or enables us, which links me to universities and schools at the moment. We're all talking about this shortage of talent, and you can tell me later whether you think it's unique to this part of the world or whether it's just the tech industry in general, such as cybersecurity and so on. Massive shortage. But are the universities filling this gap in the right way? Are they producing the right courses that's producing the right talent, or is there still a gap in what's being produced?
Yeah, no, I think unfortunately with universities, education, the academic side of things, it will when there are rapid changes in the world and the environment, I think it will always be a lag. It will always, and it's not that they're doing it deliberately or it's their fault or anything like that. It's just inertia in such a large ecosystem, and it will take some time. So I think they're moving in the right direction, but I think it will be. I think we will see. I think we're seeing unprecedented changes now in terms of how we are able to produce work, and that is both. One is obviously AI driven. Second is that we have the Earth has become flatter than ever, because of as one of the the effects of the pandemic that we have actually learned. You know, for example, I see so many meetings happening now in Singapore on video calls that never used to happen 5 years ago. If you were in Singapore, you would meet face to face, and you would do a video or maybe a quick phone call, and then you go and meet face to face.
And Singapore is not the largest place
Exactly,
in the world.
exactly. And it means also that, and we've gotten the whole experience of being able to work effectively together, not always necessarily being in the same place. So we have this ability to work remotely and hybrid, and we have all these. I mean, an industry that has sub-industry in the tech talent side that has started to emerge and that is here to stay is the employer of records industry, where there are platforms that are being with tech supported. They're able to then be the so-called employer of record across maybe all the countries on the planet for companies, startups or scale-ups, or companies that want to expand quickly into new territories and they want to hire people, but they don't want to, they don't have time or resource to set up their own capabilities and business entities.
Now, you don't just operate in Singapore. You cover quite a few countries in this part of the world. Where exactly do you cover?
So, yeah, a great question. So all out of Singapore. So we're hubbed into Singapore, and we're doing all our work then remotely across all of Southeast Asia. So all the main countries: Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam. And then we're doing quite a lot of work in India now as well. That's an amazingly exciting market for tech startup. The depth of talent in India, it's blown my mind away. And of course it's like now it's 1.4 something billion people there, so there's a lot of people to develop talent out of. But they have so much experience, particularly in B2C, scaling B2C models, but also probably the most advanced market in the Asia marketplace, perhaps maybe outside of China, for B2B startups as well.
So what talent are you seeing in demand right now? Because I want to link it back to what are the universities producing and where's the gap? So what are you seeing hot in the way of skill sets today?
So the whole AI and machine learning for sure, right? The whole machine learning space is really taking off finally, because it's actually been around as a skill set and as a technology for
quite some
40
time,
years or something. AI and various different levels, not necessarily deep learning, etc., but earlier versions of AI and machine learning, and but it's not been in the forefront of solving business problems and stuff as it is now today. So that's the need for that has started to skyrocket, but it's still early days. And I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see an amazing growth in the demand for AI and machine learning skills, and it will be a rising gap, because it takes time to produce a really good AI machine learning talent, and it's particularly if you get to the more advanced levels of understanding and working with large language models and natural language programming and video recognition, etc., then you're often looking at PhD level talent. So they need it takes about 10 years to produce.
You don't do
like
that overnight.
No, exactly. So it's going to be an increasing gap. But then in general as well, we just see a lot of there's a lot of need for, and I think just for more of soft skills in around creativity and problem solving, and being able to put ideas into action, execution. Just really good execution skills is something that is lacking. That is something that the early stage startups and the founders are constantly looking for.
You were touching on the 10x model earlier. Do you want to just expand on that?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite sort of hobby projects or thinking and studying about and reading about and talking about. Is there, first of all, is that true? Is it something? Is that notion that there's something called 10x talent, that there is talent out there that are if they're really good at what they're doing, and they're so good so that they are actually they're producing 10 times as much output as the average people in the same job roles. The first lead I got to this was actually so in my first job, we were working with Sun Microsystems as a client very closely.
It's
close
got
partnership.
McNeely and the team, yeah.
Yeah, and they were, this was in the .com boom where Sun was what Google is today. They were leading the internet revolution.
I remember it vividly,
with Java,
Spark
which is
processors
Spark, exactly. The E10K machine that came out, there was literally supercomputing level. They were selling one to Singtel here, and they needed to get permits from the Minister of Defense equivalent in the US to export it because it was a national defense or national security item. And so we were working with one of the global chief architects for Java at that time. And he was the one that told me, Roger, when we've done tests on programmers, because we were searching and placing Java architects and stuff for them on some of the most critical projects. And he said, what do you think is the difference between, on these tests, when we do these labs and programming exercises and stuff, what do you think is the difference in output between a top programmer in Java and an average programmer? And I'm like, man, I'm sure he's looking for a big answer. So I said, I think maybe 2.5, 3 times. And he said, no, Roger, it's 20x.
Bloody hell.
20x difference. And not even with the bad users one, but just to the average one.
Yeah.
I was like, man. So there was like one of those moments where I'm like, wow, if that's the case, I need to find out more about this. If this is the case, then it's going to make sense. If I'm running a business or if I'm helping someone else to build a business, it's going to make sense to try to find those people because that's going to make a big difference.
So critical thinking, collaboration, communications, softer skills around those core technology skills. I know there's demand for R, Python, C++ still, all kinds of skills in the technology front. But what about traditional skills like sales, marketing, finance? Still hot or now all automated?
No, perfect. It's no, still not all. A lot of automation, but not all automated. In the B2B world, just selling to businesses, then sales is still absolutely critical. Very much assisted by good sales ops and systems and processes and data. A lot more data driven, run by or following, state of or the leading edge sales methodologies, processes that support sales like Medics and Medpics and these kind of things. But in the end, you really need to have good salespeople, and that is a lot of soft skills, and that's an area where I think these type of roles, I think it's going to take time. It's going to take a long time for AI to displace, for example.
What about diversity? Obviously, we've got to have a conversation around diversity. There's a lot of headlines in different parts of the world, the ability to include various skill sets, whether they're male, female, whatever, into the team. And this part of the world often picks up headlines as maybe lagging some of the stuff that's going on in the Western world. But what do you really see?
Yeah. No, great. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily controversial, but I'm not a big believer in forced diversity, and initiatives. I think but I am a believer in, that you can maximize the results for a company, a business, the economy at large, and the world overall, if we are allowing ourselves to, in an indiscriminate way, looking at all talent, the whole talent pool, and not discriminating against anything, whether it is gender or race or religion or anything, right? And I also think that. So I think what we need to focus more on than stipulating rules and that you must do this and do that, is to take away as many hindrances as possible to make it as free and open as possible. And I think, for example, when it comes to gender, women would rise to the top in a lot of roles. I think in today's world, I think it is even more. For example, in data science, it looks like a very hard skill set in a way, and then maybe you think and then you look at the core people coming into it is maybe more male dominated, etc. But in reality, it's, for example, a huge component of behavioral science almost always in data science. It's a lot about understanding people, behaviors, drivers, motivations.
See, this is not an image that most people have of data science. All they see is number crunching. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
It's very different.
It's a combination of both,
Yeah,
both
yeah,
left and right
yeah,
again.
yeah,
And I think, as soon as we bring in more of that in, even though I'm not an expert in that space, I think that just anecdotally, if you like, or what is it called again? That word now that is both a little bit of data and anecdote, based on experience. Women often are better in these areas when it comes to emotional intelligence, intuition,
very much
understanding people, understanding groups of people.
Some of the best salespeople I've ever worked with are women, head and shoulders above the others.
Yeah.
When they're great, they're the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just as you say, it's that understanding the client, listening to the clients, responding to the client, efficiency, productivity, and just all-out focus on getting those great results. So,
Exactly.
and it's not just the people in marketing. It's to me across the board. Some of the founders of tech companies that I've had the privilege of working with over the last couple of years have been female-led companies, and they're just awesome leaders. They're awesome entrepreneurs and building awesome businesses. So it's to me it's a fantastic segment to work with, and I think this part of the world, even though the press may have it as lagging in certain areas, is not what I've seen. But maybe I'm too close to it here. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't see it as much either in the and again, I think in the startup ecosystem, it's more about the results, more about the cultural fit, etc. And work methods and work modes and these kind of things matters less. And I don't necessarily find that it is as much of this kind of gentleman at club type of feel that we might have had in the corporate world that we both have experienced as well, right? And
so if we're going back to those guys in universities now who may be undergrads or recent postgrads or whatever, what would you say is the hot area that you would encourage these guys to look at nowadays? Is it obviously cybersecurity is an area that's just so desperate for talent, but what other areas are you seeing in those countries that you're covering that's a shortage of talent that people could focus on to build their skills and focus their careers into?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question as well, and I think as you said, cybersecurity is definitely a really good domain to pick up hard skills in. Obviously, the whole AI, machine learning, programming space is fantastic. Anything that has to do with data is going to just continue.
Data science, analytics.
Exactly. And then, but then I think what's really, really important, if I was going to give advice to kids getting into university, etc., is to still, I think it's important to study the things that you're really interested in, things that are close to your heart, things that mean something to you, that motivates you, drive you, etc. Because that's probably the only way that you're also going to become a 10x talent in what you do, right?
Yeah, I've had 40 years in this, 40 plus years in this industry, which has been incredibly kind to me.
Yeah.
I've met so many different objectives. I've met so many great people. It's enabled me to travel around the world and do things like this, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. But when I talk to other leaders of companies or founders of companies, their backgrounds are so diverse. Some like you, have done computer science early on. Others have done fine arts. They've done, you name it, politics. It could be, and yet they've somehow ended up into this. So what I'm always trying to say to those graduates or guys going into university is, you don't have to close doors at this point. There isn't just one avenue into this. You can study all kinds of things and become very good at what you do and then end up in the tech industry in some way, right?
Yeah.
To me, I mean, how do you feel? What would you give it now to your kids? What would you say they should study?
I want to ask you the same question as well, and if I'm going to be, really honest about it, it's, I want to give advice, but then I'm thinking, like, this is probably the time. It's probably a time in the world and the change with all the changes happening and so quickly now as well, where it's more difficult to give advice than ever before, because the roles that they're likely to be working in 10 years from now, or 5 or 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now, might not even exist at this point in time.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really hard to. It's,
How do you guide them into
yeah,
that?
exactly. So that's where maybe it's kind of back to, like, I love a lot of the founders and in startups, and it's an engineering speak, right? Talks about science and engineering, first principles. To go back to first principles, that's Elon Musk's big thing, etc. Not just his, but and to just solve things from the go back to the very basics and solve it from, like, if you were going to do it based on the laws of physics, etc., or and beyond, and I think it is then going back to fundamentals. It's again about the study the things that you want to study, that you're interested in. Go out and apply yourself into the world, and at university and beyond, and try to find the place where you can be a maximum impact or maximum service. Surround yourself with good people. Be and engage with these good people and be of service to them and help them, and that'll help you. And somehow their lives will shape up, and they will end up in the tech industry, for example, if that's where they're supposed to.
So to answer your question, I have one son who's working in the tech industry already, and I have a son doing his national service here at the moment, about to go to university, and he's decided on business, which is fine. But I just want to make sure that none of my boys or anybody else's just sees that it's education and job. I always want them to think there's more than just get a job, and this is why I'm passionate about entrepreneurs and people who've got the brave craziness, if you wish, to start their own business, such as yourself, and now me as well, and many others that I work with. I want to see some of that passion, that you don't end this journey because you land a job. You want to also consider, well, maybe I don't need a job. Maybe I'm going to create a company and do something even bolder, And I'm trying to see how the universities and schools can do that. And I'm also in a very privileged position that I'm co-chair of an organization called Halogen here in Singapore. It's a not-for-profit that focuses on helping school kids, mainly between 15 17 years old, learn leadership skills and entrepreneurial skills. And we've put over 200,000 kids through that training here already, which is absolutely training, guidance, if you wish, but or mentoring. But it's absolutely fabulous impact that you're having people think about entrepreneurial skills at that age, rather than just get a job.
That's right.
How do you think universities, or how do you think kids should be coached in this area? Is it dangerous to say that you could be an Elon Musk, or is it better to say settle down, get a job? Because parental guidance can often be don't take risks, right?
Yeah. That's such a good question, and I think it's I think I think we shouldn't be too scared about taking risk. I think we're always better off trying something that we really want to do and failing than wanting to do it and not doing it.
Good.
Because we had fear.
I'm very pleased you brought that up, because fear of failure to me, I've lived here for a long time, I've lived in other places, but I'm a Brit, and in the UK, fear of failure, I know, holds a lot of people back, because societal pressure is you shouldn't fail.
Yeah.
And I've had the privilege of living and working in the United States, both East Coast and West Coast, and over there, a failure is a badge of honor. You've only failed 3 times. My goodness, I failed 7 times. And but it to them, it's a
true.
totally different attitude.
Yeah.
What do you see here in Asia Pacific?
Here, I think we still have probably quite a long way to go. In terms of that fear of failure. Because I think it is still not so acceptable to fail. And I love, there are a lot of things that I love about the US culture, and some things that I don't. But that part, in terms of being so open to failure and being so forgiving in that area, is a massive secret sauce to their success.
Certainly why the Valley has done so well.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So I think we could do well with learning from that and incorporating that more and more and more. We have a good small business entrepreneurial culture in Singapore and in Asia for sure, right? So that's there, starting a business, but maybe to take those bolder steps to start something that is very different or that is going to change an industry or a part of the economy in a bigger way. That might be held back a little bit from this lack of experience in failing and acceptance of failure as well.
So we've touched on talent. We've touched on the impact on talent with tools like AI and so on. We've touched on the education environment. We've touched on early stage companies versus larger companies. In sort of wrapping up now, what would you regard 2024 now? Are you optimistic about 24? Are you optimistic about 24 in this part of the world?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit of a pathological optimist, so I'm probably.
It's one of the reasons I like you very much.
Yeah. so I'm very, very bullish on 2024. I actually no, but I really am, even if I try to kind of tone it down. And but I think that particularly at the lens of startups, the startup ecosystem globally and in this part of the world. I think we had an absolutely necessary correction happening in early 2022 with the funding winter and the tech winter coming in and slowing down funding tremendously, and all these letters going out from VCs to the founders that now funding winter is coming, increase your runway
to 24 months if you can, right?
Yeah, from 12 months to actually 36 or even beyond. 5 years. And then valuations coming down significantly. We've at the lowest part of this, we've been about 70 to 80% down on valuations of startups. So that's a major correction. If that happens in the global stock market, it's not necessarily, maybe somewhere between a major correction and a crash. But I think that what happened in February, March 2022 allowed us to avoid another dot-com crash. It was in the making, an absolute train wreck, to be honest, because there was just the FOMO, fear of missing out was, again, at all-time highs in 2021.
Too much froth and not enough coffee. Right?
Exactly. And there were, again, I didn't think it was going to happen because I saw it in the late stage of the dot-com boom. I saw business models being invested in that I just thought, how on earth is this ever going to be profitable?
How do they get
Yeah,
funded?
I can't. Maybe I'm too stupid. Maybe I don't understand.
I don't see it.
Because I just can't see it, right? And then I always used to say in this wave, I said that's not happening as much anymore. Most of the investments in solid business models, but then over the last couple of years in particular, it started to creep in a lot again. That there was like, oh wow, that's a big valuation. That's like $20 million funding, 100 million valuations, and they don't even have revenue yet, right? I mean, is that so? So I think
a very clear correction that's happened.
Exactly.
So 23 is coming through it, and now 24, you're optimistic.
Exactly. I think it is. I think we're going to start to see we are in we're in for the third phase now, third wave. So the first wave was what led up to the internet, when the internet happened as a phenomena, and that first dot-com boom, and then we have had a second wave that brought us to 2022 or to now, if you like, and then with the correction, I think we're in for the third wave now that is going to be then turbocharged by Gen AI, etc. And I think it is the greatest yet to come. I think this is going to be the next 10 years is going to be a very exciting time, and mind-blowing.
I think we both share the fact that if we're going to be anywhere in the world, this is where we'd be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Roger, thank you very much for coming in. It's always a pleasure, but really
Likewise.
Thank you for sharing your insight. There's absolutely no question that talent is critical, and all these tools that's coming and going, okay, it's going to impact it in a way, but talent, right? It's all there.
Thank you so much, Bill, for having me, and it's been amazing to catch up again.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you.